Devlin, Untamed.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Platform.
iOS, it's only sport. Martin Devlin, Lachlan War. We present a sports show on the Platform 1 to 4, Monday through Friday. You've got to download the app to listen to it because it's a radio station that's not a radio station. You can pick up all of our interviews on YouTube. Again, the Platform NZ. Or tune into this podcast every night and tell all your friends about it too if you like it. The highlights of today's show. Henry Nichols, what on earth were you doing exactly? The investigation has exonerated Henry of allegations of ball tampering. But the confusion remains about what exactly were you doing with the ball and why were you doing it? Because you know the significance, you know the consequence. I mean, this is a very experienced batsman. Sports freak Graeme Beasley from the sportsfreak.co.nz website joining us to talk about that. EPL, English Premier League. Well, it's on another bloody break, mate. I mean, this competition is now just one big, long VAR. Just when it gets going, you start in another VAR break. Tom Rennie all over that. HK Wong, that's Wong from @Football Garbage Time, @FB Garbage Time. We talk some NFL. LBP with TMG. That's Twizel's Matt Gunn being positive as he always is. Phoenix on a tear. And a one-day cricket semi-final versus India to prepare. But as always, we begin the program, tablets in hand, I say gather my flock. H is innocent. Henry Nichols, you are innocent. Let us go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
Henry Nichols, what the hell were you doing? Why did you do it? And what actually were you doing? New Zealand Cricket's official investigation into the allegations of ball tampering said that, in their opinion, nothing was done that affected the shape or the condition of the ball. It did not meet the threshold, therefore there was no case to answer. Let me repeat that. Nothing was done that affected the shape or condition of the ball. But what they're also saying, by saying that, is that something was actually done. He was doing something to the ball, it just didn't affect the shape or the condition of it. This in the Plunket Shield match last week between Canterbury and Auckland. Now, there's all kinds of videos that have emerged all over social media. The Auckland players filming this. We're going to play you a little bit of audio from that later on. Very clearly, Henry Nichols has got the ball, he's got his helmet, and he's making contact between the two. Well, if you're not trying to alter the shape of the ball, then what are you doing and why would you do that? See, this is what confuses me about it. Henry Nichols is way too experienced to make such an obvious, clumsy and public mistake. He rubs the ball onto the helmet. Why would you do that in a game of cricket? There's another player, I don't know who he is, I'm not that familiar with the Canterbury side, who's got his thumb and is obviously working the seam and trying to separate it. Some of the Auckland players complained during that game that the ball started reverse swinging after 30 overs. I've been talking over the weekend to a number of cricketers who are past and present players who've all got something to say, but no one will say anything publicly, partly because there's a fair few of them on the New Zealand cricket payroll, so you're not allowed to speak out of turn. New Zealand cricket won't comment any more on this themselves. Henry Nichols isn't allowed to comment. But the questions still remain unanswered, don't they? No problems at all with New Zealand cricket's findings. No problem at all with that. I just want to know what you were doing, Henry, and what were you thinking? Because you know the consequences, you know the implications, you know the accusations. So why risk it and why do it? Let's turn our attention to Australia. Imagine if this was two players in the Sheffield Shield doing this. Well, it'd be sandpaper gate all over again. We wouldn't let them wriggle off the hook. Say it was, for example, a Pakistani player doing it during the One Day Cricket World Cup. Again, the whole of the cricket world would erupt. But here in New Zealand, if it's a New Zealander doing it, it's like, oh, no, there's nothing going on there. There's nothing. But there was something going on. Because otherwise, you wouldn't pick the ball up and start rubbing it against the rim of your helmet. So until we find out these answers, until we get full, unrestricted transparency with the questions and the answers, there are going to be doubts, there are going to be whispers, there's going to be finger pointing, and it's all going to linger. I'll go back to my original point. A couple of questions here. What the hell was he doing, and why on earth was he doing it? Those two questions remain the confusing, unanswered bit.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information.
You won't get it.
The platform.
Lachlan, kind of a weird weekend as far as sport was concerned because all the big things that we follow don't really happen this time of the year, do they? But we've got plenty to talk about. We've got the cricket, we've got the football, we've got Henry Nichols.
We've got the Cricket World Cup, which is probably the biggest talking point at the moment. And we played on Thursday night, for goodness sakes. That was, 4 days ago now? But I'll start off with this news around Joseph Parker, which is a little bit murky. I mean, there's some websites in New Zealand that have made it seem like it's going to happen.
Oh, it sounds, I read it on News Hub yesterday. It's an absolute definite.
And Junior Farr's going to be on the undercard, apparently. But Joseph Parker reportedly on track for a blockbuster heavyweight showdown with American heavy hitter Deontay Wilder. This according to multiple reports. There's no actually link to any source. There's multiple reports. So I'm curious. I haven't actually, to be fair, really looked for these reports. I've just seen the story. I think it was on News Hub as well. This fight, should it go ahead, is set to be in Saudi Arabia, of course, on December 23. And I don't know. It's again, we've talked about this with Joseph Parker a fair bit in the show. I think he's past his best. He's past the point of being able to contend once again. So whenever he has these fights, it's wonderful for him. It's a great cash earner and got on for getting fights against prestigious boxing opponents. I'll never get too excited about it just in terms of his title chances. Anyway, Cricket World Cup. Shreyas Iyer and KL Rahul hit hundreds as hosts India geared up for the semi-finals with a crushing 160-run victory over the Netherlands. They finish a perfect 9 from 9 during the group stage. Their next match against us, that is this coming week, of course, the other semi-final.
What are you calling it? What are you calling it?
Oh, no, we're not winning.
Oh, come on, man.
They're at home.
Just pretend for a couple of days.
See, you actually think we're winning.
I think we're winning.
No, see,
I don't think they're going through 11-0. I think they're losing a game. So it's either us or the final.
Why? Because they lost their semi-final at the last tournament? Because in 2015 they got knocked out in the semis by the hosts? They won it in 2011. You know, we talk about India as if they're huge chokers. They're not.
No, I'm not saying that they are. I'm just saying that I think they've got a foot trip in there.
Perhaps. They haven't really looked like tripping over yet, though. Premier League this morning, a couple of really good games. Well, I think one of them was a good game, that being a 3-0 win for my Liverpool over Brentford. Pretty easy business for the Reds. Chelsea and Man City playing out a 4-4 draw. Chelsea getting some good form now. That's 2 wins and a draw in their last 3, so they're unbeaten. West Ham beating Nottingham Forest 3-2. Brighton and Sheffield drawing 1-1. In terms of the table...
Look at the table, mate. Look at where we are.
Well, first off, excuse me, I got that wrong. Chelsea have drawn and won in their last 2.
Scored 8 in the last 2.
Yeah. So you guys are somehow 6th. Manchester United beating Luton over the weekend. 7 wins, 5 losses from 12. You haven't drawn a game.
We're 6th. We're absolute rubbish and we're 6th.
There is a team who glaringly stands out in terms of their goals difference among that top sort of 7 and 8. It's you guys with -3.
Yeah, I know. But imagine what happens if we start playing well.
Yeah, no, you're not a good team. Man City on top by 1 point ahead of Liverpool and Arsenal, who are tied on 27 points, City on 28. Tottenham are 4th. They've slid down after back-to-back defeats. They're on 26 points. Only 2 points separating first from 4th, 3 points separating first from 5th. Aston Villa are 5th at the moment. A round of applause, by the way, for the women's Wellington Phoenix side, who have won their 3rd straight match.
Yeah, brilliant stuff.
Brilliant.
3-1 Brilliant stuff for both the blokes and the chicks.
Brilliant. Yeah, blokes as well. 4 games in. The men are 2 wins and 2 draws under new coach Giancarlo Italiano, who's got a very thick Australian accent. You wouldn't think it by the name. But no, the Wellington Phoenix women started off with a loss, but they've won their last 3. And as I say, yesterday beating Western United 3-1. Brilliant result for the women's Phoenix side. Some golf results and news. Kiwi Ben Campbell has broken his Asian Tour duck with a maiden victory at the Hong Kong Open, out-dueling former British Open champion Cam Smith in a dramatic finish. Good stuff, Ben Campbell. Kiwi women's golfer Lydia Ko has snuck into the LPGA top 100. Barely, though, retaining her full tour card for next year. Boy, last year she finished the year number 1 in the world. It's been a year to forget for Lydia Ko. And Australia have made it back-to-back titles after delivering a clinical 35-23 win over New Zealand to clinch the 2023 Fast 5 Netball World Series in Christchurch last night. That's what's making news, Martin.
Devlin.
Have you seen my wiener?
The platform.
Henry Nichols. Henry Nichols. Test batsman for New Zealand, preparing to go and play Bangladesh in that series. Very experienced cricketer, playing for Canterbury in the Plunket Shield versus Auckland last week. Gets the ball, gets his helmet, makes connection between the two. Well, that's not right, is it? That's not cricket. So, allegations of ball tampering. Well, he faced an official investigation. He's been cleared, he's been exonerated. But why did you still do it? And what was the point of it? And you know you're going to get caught and filmed, so this is the confusing aspect. And the bits that haven't been answered, I don't believe fully yet. Sports free, Graeme Beasley. with his thoughts. I've been very much looking forward to talking to you today about this. Henry Nichols, first and foremost, the review or the inquiry from New Zealand cricket, what does it tell you?
It tells me that I don't think they've got much experience in dealing with issues like this. I mean, it's very rare. I can't recall of them having to deal with it before. The two commissioners they had looking into it are very highly respected. They're both lawyers, but they're also both heavily involved in cricket. So you've got to take their word for it. But I just think that this is something new. But what's really interested me about this issue, I talked to quite a lot of people over the weekend, people who really know their stuff, people whose views I respect, and just the difference of opinion was amazing. You know, there are people that thought there was absolutely nothing to it. That sort of stuff happens the whole time. He couldn't have done anything. It was obvious there was no case to be answered for. And then there are others who thought that that's one of the worst examples of ball tampering they've seen. And basically he's got caught with his fingers in the till and his pants down. So it just really surprised me. Like, for example, if you go back to last week in that issue of in the World Cup of Angelo Matthews being timed out, every single person I've talked to thought that was rubbish. You know, that was bad form by Shakib Al Hassan and should never have happened. You know, absolutely universal. Whereas on this one, you know, you ask 5 people and you get about 7 different opinions on what should have happened. So it's a really tricky one. And then also you get people on Twitter who just want Tom Bruce called up to the test side, so they therefore think that he was guilty. But you just put those views to one side. It's a really interesting one. I mean, if Warner and Smith weren't otherwise occupied, could they have got them on the phone and asked them to think what they thought of it? It just sort of seemed to me that this was kind of new ground. And I think probably for something like ball tampering, the threshold of evidence probably does need to be pretty high. And I think as much as anything, that's probably what got Henry Nichols off.
The Commission has found that neither the actions of Nichols nor the evidence presented met the threshold. We find the player's actions were, in fact, unlikely to alter the condition of the ball or the shape of the ball. That is officially what this inquiry came out with, which means that he did something to the ball. They say his actions were unlikely to alter. In that case, what the hell is he doing and why is he doing it? Because he's obviously doing something to the ball. Now, look, this guy is a really experienced cricketer, Graeme. He's also a test player. He also knows the consequences and the significance of doing something like this and being caught doing it. So, this is the question that they haven't answered that I want answered. Henry, what the hell were you doing and what the hell were you thinking?
Yeah, that's right. And also it appears that the condition of the ball wasn't really altered that much, if at all. So if you're going to ball tamper, do it really badly, and then, you know, you won't get punished for it, because if the ball doesn't change shape, then obviously you haven't really done anything to it. But there just does seem to be an element of, the helmet fell out of his hands and landed on a concrete floor and split into 2.
That's exactly it. Yeah, this is what I don't get, you know. And look, I sent you a video, and I got sent 3 or 4 of these over the weekend, but the one that I sent you, which we're going to play on air again, it's the reaction from the Auckland players in the dressing room when they see it. That, to me, is something that is undeniable.
Although they're probably not that impartial either. But it is interesting that the Auckland players started filming it. So obviously it had gone on for about 3 overs. They saw it maybe, after the first over, and then started videoing it themselves. So, they obviously thought that they knew what was going on for them to do that. I don't know if that video that we're talking about was part of what the commissioners looked into, or whether they just looked into the official New Zealand cricket videos. That hasn't been answered. So I think there probably needs to be a little bit more transparency about it. I think they probably want to issue a few more details, because I don't think it's going to go away. I think, and once other countries get wind of it, fortunately everyone's focus is on the World Cup at the moment. So from that point of view, it's actually probably quite good timing. But, once the Australians work out what's going on, they'll say that we can't have a go at them about Sandpaper Gate anymore. And that'll be a real shame, because that's a lot of fun doing that. And, who knows what the Indians and Bangladeshis and the English will think of it.
Yeah, that's one
so
big.
I-
It's a great point to make because when you right at the start, you said that you don't think this has been handled really well. I mean, just coming out with a really bland statement saying that nothing is going on here, everyone needs to move on. I mean, that's fine for you to think that, New Zealand cricket, but no one else is actually thinking that. And perception is reality. And what you've got to do is you've got to fully explain, as you say, with full transparency, exactly what. Because the way that New Zealanders and the way that New Zealand sports administrations deal with this, none of our players are drug cheats, right? Oh, unless they live in Zimbabwe. None of them assault women. Oh no, that was something completely different. None of them snort cocaine off the Ranfurly Shield and smash it on the floor doing hijinks. None of them ball tamper. We're just absolutely exonerated on everything. We're the most cleanest, purest sporting nation in the world, or are we? I mean, if this was anyone else doing this and you saw it in a game of cricket, you'd be going, what on earth are you doing? And that's the only explanation I need. Henry Nichols, I like this guy. I actually have met him a lot. I've talked to him a lot. I trust him. Just tell us what you were doing, because what you were doing was an unnatural action on a cricket field. You don't grab an object and play with the ball with it. You don't do that. So what was the purpose of what you were trying to achieve, Henry?
And to do it over after over after over as well. And you're right, I've met him too. And I think that's part of what's really confused people, is it just seems to be so out of character. But if we got footage like that out of the Sheffield Shield, we'd say, come on, Cricket Australia, sort your act
That's
out.
it. Yeah, totally.
We do want to know what's happened here. You're the custodians of the game, so you claim, and all that kind of stuff. So just give us some more information. So I think that's what New Zealand cricket needs to do now. Whether they will or not, I don't know. And as I say, I just sort of feel it's slightly uncharted waters for them. And so they probably haven't quite known how to handle it. I mean, it certainly came way out of left field. And as an aside, it'll be interesting to see what happens when Canterbury plays Auckland next, won't it? Because there's clearly some pretty bad blood there now.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. Moan. I'm
moaning
sick
all
of
the
it.
time.
Oh, yeah, I got to moan on, all right. It's Monday. I got to moan on the Premier League. It's enough following a team that's crap every week, getting up in the early hours of the morning and just watching terrible football. It's enough doing that without the stupid, dumb comp start its way through its own season. The whole point of following a league is that it builds up momentum. But oh no, the new way of doing it is to have a break every 3 weeks to play internationals. Last year they paused the Premier League for over a month because of the World Cup. That was unheard of. That was unprecedented. Totally frustrating. And this year it's even worse. It's like one big VAR referral. Just when you're getting right into it, it stops again. And you have to wait for another fortnight. 12 games in, and this is now the third such break. And it totally sucks. The Premier League isn't just about England and Europe anymore. It hasn't been for decades, in fact. The global following dwarfs the British fan base. And none of us in these other parts of the world give a rat's about Sweden playing Denmark and another break in a competition that we don't care about. Sort it out. Play these internationals in the off-season, or make a break where you play them all in one big parcel or package. This is a league. It's meant to be continuous, you dickhead fish heads. Moan, blah, blah, blah. Good one, Premier League. You've now turned your whole season into one big, long, tedious stop-start VAR.
Devlin,
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
the platform.
Premier League, 12 games in, almost a third of the season gone. Well, why are we having another break? Just when you get stuck into this competition, it starts heating up. We stop again? What for? What for? Why? Because it's an international break. Look, it's not just about England and Europe and their fans anymore. This is a global competition. The rest of us don't care about Sweden playing Denmark in some Euro, whatever it is. Tom Rennie, on why on earth we've stopped again in the Premier League, and is it still Man City's to lose? Tom, another bloody international break, mate. Give us a break from these breaks.
Oh, I know. They're interminable at this time of year. And the trouble is as well, this is actually turning into a pretty good season with incredible games and loads going on. And now it's, oh, look, we're talking about Gareth Southgate in the England squad again for 8 days. Terrific.
It's just boring now, isn't it? I don't know. Last year they interrupted the whole league because of the World Cup, which was unheard of and unprecedented. And now it seems that we get 3 games and then you get another 2-week break. Isn't there a better way of doing this?
I mean, there is a better way, and if I could bore you for 30 seconds on it, what they should do is completely start the football calendar again from scratch. Start the European football calendar from a complete blank piece of paper. And what I would do is a 5-month season, followed by 1 month of FA Cup, followed by 4 months the rest of the season, then an entire month to 6 weeks of international football. If you do that, then you can get 6 or 7 international games in together. You get to build camp camaraderie. You don't play them again for a year. The amount of times I watch an international game, which when they're playing and when there's tournaments and qualifiers, I do find them quite interesting. But the trouble is, I can't remember what happened 3 weeks ago. In the last international break, I don't know who's through and who's not and who beat who, because you get so wrapped up in the other thing. It's like the cricket problem. You watch a game of cricket, oh, they're doing the 100. Now they're doing 2020. Now they're doing a test match. You can't follow what's happening because the calendar is so bizarre. You would not design the calendar like this. The whole thing is a horse designed by a committee. What we need is it just to be done from scratch to make some sense. But I get the feeling that someone, probably UEFA and or FIFA, are making money out of this somehow. So it probably won't happen.
Tom Rennie from talkSPORT. A blanket thrown over the first 5 teams, just 3 points separating Man City 28 down to Aston Villa 25. All played 12 games. An absolute crackerjacker at Chelsea this morning, 4-4.
Amazing game. Genuinely amazing game. One of the best games of football I have seen in many, many years. It made me delighted to have given up my ticket to go and watch the West Ham game instead. I mean, the thing with Chelsea right now is that we haven't actually given them the shoeing that we've all given, including you, Manchester United, over the first few months of the season, because I don't think we expect anything anymore. They've been so bad for so long. It's commonly agreed this is not how you build a football team. And so when they do something not awful, it almost feels like a shock. It almost feels like a mid-ranking Premier League team did that against Man City today, which makes it all the more interesting they were able to do it. Scored some really good goals, had some really good moments. Raheem Sterling had his best performance for many, many years, probably since he was at Manchester City. And the other big narrative from the game from a Chelsea perspective is Cole Palmer. This guy, Cole Palmer, was getting hawked around Europe like an unwanted disease during the summer. They were desperate to get rid of him. They were desperate to find a way to palm him off on somebody else, like an unwanted nephew, like Harry Potter's adopted family treated Harry Potter before the owl turned up. You know, they just didn't want him. And yet he goes to Chelsea for an extraordinary amount of money, around £40 million on transfer deadline day. And Cole Palmer was the best player on the field. He was astonishingly good. He was so good in the second half. Pochettino, his manager, moves him central midfield, number 10, to start running the game. And then, 5th minute, a penalty is given away, a clear penalty too, unlike the one earlier in the game, which I thought was dubious at best. Cole Palmer takes the ball, as he did previously for Chelsea, but against City, where he was raised and reared as a player, where he scored in the Super Cup and Community Shield this season, and takes the penalty and scores it. It's a terrific story. It's a terrific moment. And if I ever get the chance to score a last-minute penalty for my team, I hope Peter Drury's on commentary. I was watching it on TV today. The world's greatest commentator doing it. I just can't imagine a better scenario. So that was fantastic. And also, for the league, you mentioned the blanket being thrown over the top 5. We need City to drop points. So weirdly, it was the second time this week I found myself supporting Chelsea, which was a terrible, terrible experience.
Is it still City's to lose? Liverpool, Arsenal tucked in right behind, and Tottenham are doing a Tottenham. They've lost their last 2. Is it still City's?
Yeah, of course it is. Look, it's still City's to lose. City would need to lose this season 5 games of football, right? If they lose 5 games of football, and they have lost 2, so I don't discount it completely, but today was one of those games. They came through it and still got something from the game. They need to lose against all of their rivals in the top 4 and at least one other game as well. The Wolves game has already happened. If that happens, they may still be champions, but it means they'll get capped off at 95 points, 92 points. If they can get sub 90 points, I can see Liverpool getting 90. I can see Arsenal at a push getting 90. And that makes it interesting. That makes it competitive. And that's what the Premier League needs right now, because it is going a bit Bundesliga, a bit Juventus in their pomp. And so it's a possibility. And if you look at the other 2, Arsenal, despite having injury issues, something they never had to deal with last season, victorious again this weekend. Very nice fixture against Burnley, absolutely, but got back to winning ways there. And with Liverpool, they're just doing it. They're just finding ways to grind out Premier League results, and they can, even though they lost it to Toulouse in midweek, afford to drop a few Europa League games, rotate everybody. They'll still win that group. They'll still likely win that competition, and they can fully focus on the Premier League, unlike Arsenal and City, who've got Champions League coming up, knockout stages in February, March. So I think it's a three-horse race. I'd still make City gargantuan favourites, but whenever they drop points, there is hope for the others. The question is, do they have the consistency down the home stretch in 4 months' time to get over the line?
The Tight Five.
5 separate sporting topics, though, roughly a minute there or thereabouts on each. And when the bell goes ding, so do we. Moving quickly on to the next topic. What are we going to talk about? We've talked about Henry Nichols at length in the last hour. We might give that little one and sidestep it. Devontae Wilder versus Joseph Parker. Are you interested? Start of both Phoenix sides. You happy with it, Lachlan? Is Nolan going to stay on as Silver Ferns coach? Can Maguire do both roles, both Origin and the Kiwis for New Zealand Rugby League? Addin Fonua-Blake again in the news, this time St George, apparently the suitor. Another international break for the bloody Premier League. And say it out loud, Lachlan, let's start with it. New Zealand, the Black Caps are going to beat India on Wednesday.
No.
If you say it enough times, you start believing it.
They're not.
They aren't?
I would love it if they did. I absolutely would. And we do have a chance because we're not a bad team.
We're
and
not a
India
bad team.
aren't invincible.
That's right.
And the beauty of sport, as we had to go through in France, and I've gone through a number of times this year with my teams, is things can go really well and then all of a sudden they don't.
That's right.
We could absolutely win this match. Based, however, on the facts in front of us. India are 9-0 at this tournament.
Okay,
They're
there is
at
that.
home.
Okay, there is that.
They know these conditions
There is
and
that.
these wickets
There
really
is,
well.
okay, I'm ticking boxes here. That's 4 in a row.
We have not beaten one of the better sides of this tournament.
Box number 5.
So there's India, Australia, South Africa, Pakistan. We lost to all 4.
Okay, all right. Okay.
And the best team that we beat, England,
We're crap.
were rubbish until
Okay.
their final 2
All right,
games.
Okay, that's 6 out of 6. What else you got?
Well, do I need anything
What
else?
else have you? Is that all you've got?
What I do have that bodes well for us is when it comes to Cricket World Cups, at least the last 2 prior to this tournament, boy, things have really gone our way.
Yes.
Very much so.
Much so.
And at the last tournament, very much so against India. So,
Well, we've won 2 consecutive semi-finals with the weather helping us hugely in both.
mightily.
Against South Africa, let's not forget in 2015, ladies and gentlemen, if it hadn't have rained, they would have been in the final. I mean, if you go back and watch that game, and even when it came down to the last few balls, we were chipping it into the outfield. It was like watching, when the ball goes up, a little blooper in baseball, and 3 fielders are all running for it, and then they all kind of back off because they're going to collide and think, whose is that? Mine? No one's calling mine. That happened about 3 times. And then Daniel Vettori noodled a 4 with about 2 or 3 balls to go to put Grant Elliott in a position to hit that 6. So, and then 4 years ago in England, it took 2 days to beat India, and rain stepped in again and helped us. So, both times we were the underdogs in those semi-finals. Look, India are under enormous
we
pressure
probably
here.
weren't going into that South Africa one, though.
Oh, no, we were massive underdogs going into that, mate. Come on. I mean, yeah, we were, mate.
We won every game match out of the tournament. We were one of the best ODI sides in the world. We were co-hosting it. We were at home in a semi-final against a team who have a really checkered past at the ODI World Cup. I think we were the favourites in that,
There
surely.
you go. See, all of this adds up nicely, doesn't it, to the fact that we could cause an upset on
We
Wednesday.
could. I don't think we will, but we could.
Can Madge Maguire do both roles? Monty Beetham, who is a Kiwi selector, on the program last Monday.
I don't like that, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. When I was part of the independent panel that appointed Madge the job Kiwis, and he told me a long time back then saying that, when I said, can you do club and country? And he says, mate, I'm a workaholic, I can do it all. And I looked into his eyes when he answered that question that I put to him, and I believed it.
I kind of side with Mons here. I just think that, you got to do one or t'other. Although, then again, the Kiwis don't play that many games, do they? So,
Well, you're only really doing because the job that he might be getting is the Blues Origin job. And that is a job that obviously you've got to keep tabs on players and you've got to watch, and he'd have to do this anyway with the Kiwis though, but watch the NRL and look closely at New South Welshmen. But it's a job that only really goes for about a month and a half. So, and then it never overlaps with international games. So he could do both. The only way, where it wouldn't work is if he was taking on another NRL job. I guess you don't want anything to take away from his current role being with the Kiwis, and he's done a pretty good job with us. Very up and down with results, but we've gotten a couple of wins over Australia under his mentorship, if you will. I actually wouldn't have a problem with it at all, because he did coach the Tigers and us, and was unfairly let go by the Tigers. Well,
we're waiting for NZRL to make this decision, and it was meant to be today, and we'll just keep waiting.
Well, there was an article that came out yesterday saying it'll be... So he's talking to he's presenting something to the board, and they're open to him doing both jobs, and something will be decided in the coming weeks.
Is Dame Nolene going to stay on quickly?
I don't think she will.
I saw the front page of the Sunday News was in the gas station yesterday. I didn't buy it, but I did see it where she said she's going to wait till after Christmas, spend some time with family, and then decide.
She's been doing the job for a while. There's been murmurs and rumblings ever since they won the World Cup that she might not be in it for that long. And also, she said something earlier this year, I think it was actually on our show, where she admitted that if there was a point where she felt she wasn't the right person for the job...
Yeah, she'd step aside.
She'd step aside. And the form of the Silver Ferns has been very average for a couple of years. And she's pretty much admitted that it's, the players they have to choose from, these are the players. She's made many comments around the roster, and if you read between the lines, it's essentially saying, hey, we're just not that talented right now, maybe compared to what we once had. So, anyway... I actually don't think she will.
I think she will. She's a winner, and I reckon she wants to go out a winner, and so I think she will. Premier League international break. Huh?
Nah.
Yeah. I mean, just stop it, Premier League. Just you got a great competition going on. Stop stopping it.
Well, they don't have a choice. It's down to FIFA, isn't it?
Well, and UEFA have also introduced that new Nations Cup competition, of course, just to squeeze more money out of it. It's like the NBA in tournament, basketball blow to bollocks. Henry Nichols. Are you satisfied? See, I'm just not satisfied. I'm not saying the investigation got it wrong. I'm not saying that he ball tampered, but there's just too many unanswered questions from this, Lachlan.
Yeah, the footage looks strange.
Something
it really
went
doesn't
on.
look
he
right.
He did do something, and it's been acknowledged.
Yeah.
He did something, but what he did was not enough of something to make a difference to anything. Well, that doesn't mean you didn't do nothing, does it?
Well, no, the footage shows him do it. Like, if he was rubbing it against his pants or his shirt...
That's fine. You're allowed to do that.
He's using his helmet.
An object.
I don't like it at all.
With a sharp end, I don't like it.
The release from New Zealand Cricket didn't say he didn't do anything. It said he just didn't breach this.
Yeah, he didn't do enough of what he was doing to alter the ball. But that doesn't mean he didn't do nothing. He did something.
As we questioned earlier, isn't the action of doing that thing, regardless of the outcome, the thing that's illegal?
Well, isn't it? Addin Fonua-Blake back in the news again. And look, let's just recap this story, because what happened a week or so ago was that out of nowhere, the most valued player, I believe, in the Warriors squad just suddenly announced that he was leaving on compassionate grounds to go back to Sydney to spend more time with his parents. And then the very next day, cancelled that and said, no, I'm going to stay for another year at least, but I may not stay the final year of my contract. And immediately, you've got to be suspicious about this, going, what the hell's going on? Because you can't be so overwhelmed, desperate to go back to the family, and then 24 hours later you aren't that overwhelmed and desperate to go back. So what's happened is his manager got a call from another club. That's the immediate suspicion, right? And then the Bulldogs were rumoured and Cronulla was rumoured. And then over the weekend, St George. And the Tongan player contingent from St George, Mate Tonga, who Addin Fonua-Blake played for over in England, right? These boys are apparently all in his ear saying, come and join us. And St George got the cash. Well, this all makes much more sense to me than, hey, I want to leave on compassionate grounds, and then, hey, I don't want to leave on compassionate grounds.
Well, he's not going to come out and say that, I want to leave because I want to go play for someone else. Like when he left the Sea Eagles and then got signed by the Warriors, he requested a release from Manly to come back and be with family at home, because I believe his wife or his partner's family are Kiwis, all based in New Zealand.
Right.
And you're like, okay, fair enough. You want to be closer to families. Now he's doing the same thing to go back over. And then the story of St. George came
just
out.
Fess it up, mate. I mean,
he's never going to.
It makes
he
it
won't
easy to
fess it
of
up.
course, but I mean, we all know what's going on.
No, because there's many people out there who will believe, no, he does want to be with family. It just so happens that St. George are interested as well. There'll be people who believe that. But no, you don't request a release unless you got something else lined up. You don't quit a job or resign from a job if you haven't got anything else lined up.
Especially not when you're getting paid $1 million
well, it's
a year.
A dumb thing to do.
Finally, Devontae Wilder versus Joseph...
Deontay. You keep calling him Devontae.
Okay, well, Deontay Wilder versus his cousin Devontae, who Joseph has already beaten. Joseph Parker got Deontay Wilder supposedly in Riyadh.
He'll get killed.
Saudi Arabia. Well, he's just, as I heard Dan Lonergan in the news there, and he's right, he's just got to stay out of the way. This guy's a massive puncher. But this is just a paycheck, is it not? I mean, Joseph is not going to get another shot at the heavyweight title. No, he's not.
Well, because it's going to be on the it's likely going to be on the undercard of it's an it's Anthony Joshua fight, his next fight. It's meant to be on the undercard of that. So it's attaching yourself to a big money, big fame, massively opulent spectacle that'll be over in Saudi Arabia. And it's a cash grab in a sense. Look, Joseph Parker and his team will do all they can to tell you, you just need a couple more wins and we're right back in there. But they've said that after every single defeat he's had over the last 4 or 5 years. He is not in the title picture.
He's not in the title.
He would have to really floor Deontay Wilder for people to go, hold up, maybe
I'm a bit worried as well. I don't think he moves his feet fast enough to get out of the way.
Wilder's got the hardest punch in all of boxing. He put Tyson Fury on his back, who somehow got up and...
Yeah, he just sprang to life, didn't he?
Yeah. Possessed.
No, look, stay safe, Joseph. Earn the cash, stay safe, and stay out of the way. NFL, round 10 of the National Football League, American football, gridiron. Our man HK Wong at FB Garbage Time looking back at some of the highlights. And for those of us who support crap teams like the Commanders, the lowlights. Why do I sound so enthused when once again they kick me in the guts?
That's what they do, man. But hey, listen, you lost on a last-second field goal. It doesn't make you feel any better, but your quarterback was all right, okay? And you weren't the only one to lose by a last-second field goal this week. 5 games lost on a last-minute field goal. So you're just one of the group there. So you're not alone, my friend. You're not alone.
I want to talk about you smacking up the Panthers. That team, the Panthers, they'd won 1 game this season, mate.
Yeah, I know, and it's great because, and I was saying this to Lachlan as well, I'm not necessarily celebrating this win. They are the worst team in the NFL right now, but we do own the first-round draft pick of the Carolina Panthers. So the more they lose, the better a pick we're going to have. So a little bit of a moral victory in the back end there. And listen, we don't get so few wins. I'll take whatever I can get.
This is the point of the NFL, ladies and gentlemen. You do. There's only 17 games in the regular season. Every game is like the FA Cup final. You celebrate every single win. Tell us about the Bengals losing to the Texans. I'm loving this Texans side because they have been rubbish for years. They get a brand new quarterback, a rookie. Burrows throws, 4 interceptions. They win at 30-27. Are they for real, the Texans?
I think they absolutely are. I think that C.J. Stroud is actually growing up before our eyes. Last week, I mentioned the fact he had 470 yards and 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. Only the 6th player in the history of the NFL to have that. This week, he follows it up and does amazing things all over again. I mean, this kid cannot be stopped. He is the real deal. And people in Carolina must be hating themselves for the fact that they didn't select him first overall and took Bryce Young instead. I think that is not only him, it's the defense. And it's also his wide receivers. Because look at who he's throwing to. Nico Collins. We don't know much about him. He wasn't that much of a prospect. He was pretty good when he came into the league. Now he's a superstar. Noah Brown. We don't know much about Noah Brown. He's just going to be a journeyman. He's had 2 games back-to-back with 150 yards. That only Andre Johnson has done more than that. And DeAndre Hopkins has done more than that for the Houston Texans. And then there's Tank Dell, their rookie wide receiver, who again went off this week as the number 1 wide receiver on that team. I mean, the thing is that their offense is really rolling. And I don't know what to say about it other than the fact that he must be building it up. And I've heard this through other people who are reporting on the beat, that he's building that locker room feel, that people believe in C.J. Stroud. And he's getting their buy-in. This week, 356 yards and a touchdown, and he also ran in a touchdown. He's unstoppable. And you look at what he did with Tank Dell, another 56 yards and a touchdown there. In his tight end, Dalton Schultz, 71 yards. The biggest surprise of them all, Devin Singletary, the backup running back, running wild, 30 attempts for 150 yards on a touchdown, his greatest game in his career. under this regime, they're 5-4. Texans are for real, my friend.
HK Wong at FB Garbage Time, at Football Garbage Time. Browns beating the Ravens. Now, last week, the Ravens, 6 or 7-2 they might have been, and we were sitting there thinking, is this team going to challenge the Chiefs of being the best team in the AFC? Because we'll get on to the Jags next, who got absolutely polled by the 49ers. But this Ravens side up 2 touchdowns in that fourth quarter. The Browns come back and burgle at 33-31. What went wrong?
Well, I think that part of it was the fact that they kind of sat back and played too defensive on offense. I think that the Lamar Jackson crew and all the offensive coordinator knowledge there is to play safe when you're behind. But as some people have said in the past, you can't play not to lose. And that's what happened with the Baltimore Ravens here. They got stung playing way too conservatively and allowed the Cleveland Browns to claw their way back into this. And that is a huge problem. You can't do that. And at the end of the day, Lamar Jackson still having problems with accuracy. 2 interceptions, that will hurt you. You know, you can't have that happen, and you can't have a pick 6 come off of that, because that is really what got him back into the game at the very end. In the end of the fourth quarter, that interception returned him for a touchdown of Lamar Jackson. So that's the problem. You know, they got to play more aggressively. They got all the right pieces, but they can get bit if they play too conservatively with the lead, and that's what they happened to them today.
Okay, I'll keep going through then. Let's go to the Jags and the 49ers, because the 49ers had lost 3 when they were 5-0. We were all thinking they are the best team in the NFC. Brock Purdy gets injured, but Jaguar side 6-2 before they go there. What did this game tell you?
Well, I think that this is what we were talking about all along, and this is what we talked about last week as well. I just don't think Trevor Lawrence is the guy, and I just don't think that the Jaguars have everything that they need. I think that there's a problem in terms of their run game. Travis Etienne is a great pass-catching back, but they don't have somebody who can be that guy between the middle, between the tackles, and just take that ball, you know, upfield 2-3 yards at a time. They don't have that. And Calvin Ridley, he's got hot and cold. He hasn't made a huge impact yet, and the offensive line is struggling in pass protection. They allowed 5 sacks on Sunday. It's ugly for the Jaguars. But let's give the 49ers some credit. They got their swag back. They got Brock Purdy healthy back. They got some new tools over there on defense, and they're playing top ball right now. This is the 49ers team that we were worried about at the beginning of the season, and we saw them slide 3 games, and we thought, is there a problem here? And the problem is, if Brock Purdy is not there, if Brock Purdy is not healthy, this team's going to fall apart on offense. And if the defense doesn't step up, he's not the guy who's going to get them to the Super Bowl. So I think that this is exactly the game the 49ers want to play. The Jaguars have been overhyped all season. I don't think they're going to be able to overcome this, because they have a lot more to accomplish in front of them. And the Houston Texans are rolling in the AFC South. So I just don't see how the Jaguars don't end up falling to the Houston Texans at the end of the season.
LBP, let's be positive. Matt Gunn, we got lots to talk about, including Henry Nichols. Is there another brouhaha brewing? Australian Rugby versus Australian Rugby League. Finger pointing and player poaching is absolutely rife. A power cut in Twizel. Well, how do you cope with that this day and age? Does everyone have to have a generator in their backyard, do they? As well as that, Addin Fonua-Blake, is he going to be hanging around after 2025? Let's be positive. Mate, what happened to the power? You're next to all the hydro lakes. You don't have power cuts down there?
No, I don't know. They're working on power poles and, you know, upgrading equipment. And honestly, look, I'd like to blame them because they've just cut the power off this morning. But maybe I read the info wrong. You know what I mean? Maybe it was me, and maybe it was always today, but I thought it was next Monday. Anyway, I've had to run around and shut everything down and then start everything up and get a generator going, and got to keep the radio Twizel frequency pumping out to the people. There's nothing else to do in town today.
Okay, living in a place like Twizel, is it imperative and essential that you have your own generator? Is that everyone has one, do they?
Oh, normally these people that live in town, they don't have generators, but the radio station's always got a backup. You got to keep the radio going, right? I've got 2 generators. I'm always ready for power to be cut. But yeah, look, I mean, I just say to anyone, if you think about losing power for a couple of days and all the money you got wrapped up in your freezer and fridge and all the things you do around home that require a little bit of power, or even charging your laptop to do some work, a little generator goes a long way, mate.
Yeah.
It goes a long way. Maybe not eco-friendly, you know what I'm saying? You are burning a little bit of petrol to get the power, but it keeps your life on hold, and at least you don't have to go to the landfill and throw out all your food.
Let's talk sport and be positive about Henry Nichols, who got off a charge of tampering with the ball. But we've been talking about this all day, mate. And the thing that gets me, and I still need an answer just to resolve it in my own head, is what the hell was he doing exactly? Because what the inquiry says, Matt, is that what he was doing didn't change the shape or the performance or the constitution of the ball. But that also says he was doing something. So what was he doing, and why would he be doing it?
Well, it looked like, because the footage, I mean, when I first started to look at it, I couldn't quite work out what I was seeing, but it looks like he's banging one side of the ball onto a helmet.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just to rough it up a little bit or change the shape on one side. Wanting the ball to swing, obviously, swing comes from when one side of the ball is smoother than the other. You know the aerodynamics of a cricket ball. Well, it looks like he was trying to manipulate the ball. And the fact is that the investigation seemed to confirm that at least he was trying to manipulate the ball.
That's it, yeah.
Even though the inquiry found that it didn't work.
Matt, is Australian Rugby and League about to enter another cross-code finger-pointing player poaching war? Mark Nawaqanatawasi, the Wallaby fullback, rumoured to be going to the Roosters. So Rugby stole Joseph Suaalii, and they're going to steal one back. And now the clubs, the NRL clubs apparently, are in talks to rewrite the rules and say that if you actually get somebody from rugby, well, then they don't come under the salary cap. So we've seen this, haven't we, decade after decade after decade. Is it erupting again?
Well, if you start making moves to give clubs a clear gateway to bring players in and not affect the salary cap, you would have to jump to the conclusion that 100% yes, and that there will be a push by any club trying to sneak good players into or under their salary cap, right? I mean, that just seems like a ridiculous idea to start with. There's a salary cap for a reason, and if you can bring a world-class player from another code in, which doesn't count, I mean, how fair is that to the players that are actually still playing and can't get paid more because of the salary cap?
Yeah, good point.
You know, I mean, look, I don't really care about fairness, but it would seem that if you set yourself up that way, that there must be some intent to do it. And, you know, it's not even surprising given the state of Australian rugby, you know, given how they've performed in recent times where it sits. Why wouldn't you start offering players options? I mean, it just seems like the way forward. Doesn't always work, league to rugby, rugby to league, but sometimes it does work. And sometimes the name itself draws a bit of a crowd, although Roger wasn't able to do that at all.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He made the change the other way around, but we'll see how he goes this year. Yeah, it's definitely going to be on. Why else would you set yourself up to be able to do it for free?
Finally, we find out that Addin Fonua-Blake has been courted by another club. This is no surprise. We spoke about this last Monday, that all of a sudden out comes a compassionate clause leave, and then all of a sudden, no, next day he wants to stay. And both of us were very suspicious that the manager's pulling a Swifty here and that someone else has stepped in with a big offer. And so convenience says, well, I'll pull the clause out, and then the Warriors give him more money. I mean, I'm just connecting dots in my own brain here. Could be a conspiracy theory. But now that the news that St. George and the Tongan-based players there have been at him to jump clubs, I mean, again, look, it's a smoke with fire thing, doesn't it? These things just don't happen out of nowhere. A guy just doesn't get a whim and go, I've got to go back to Sydney. I've got to go back. I've got to move back to mum and dad. Oh, hang on a second. No, I don't. I mean, the whole thing needs an explanation, doesn't it? Well, we deserve it.
I actually thought I read a couple of weeks ago that he was potentially talking to the Bulldogs.
Right. Okay. Well, he's obviously given you the short shaft, hasn't he? I mean, because obviously St. George have come in with an even better offer than the Dogs.
It doesn't take long, does it? Someone makes him available on paper, and then next thing you know, everyone wants to make the change. I mean, look, we've talked about this many, many times with players coming and going. Regardless of contracts, regardless of how many years are on the dotted line, it doesn't matter anymore. I mean, money is what talks. If he's going to go, he's going to go. Be a big loss. I'd say the Warriors, I don't know if they can afford to keep him.
Well, I don't know if they can replace him either. I mean, these guys are the meter eaters in the NRL. I mean, you can have all the playmakers you want, but they don't go nowhere, do they? Unless you get a couple of guys like that who are consistent. And he didn't play well in the playoffs, but during the competition, regular season, 24 games. I mean, he was the best player on the park for most of those games. And so, yeah, I don't know if any player is irreplaceable, but he's right at the top of the very nearly list, if there is one.
Well, I mean, after the way we saw the club roll this year, you would have thought that everyone they could hang on to that performed, they'd want to hang on to. And he was a terrific player all year. No, not everyone played that well in the playoffs. That happens sometimes. But a big loss up forward. As you know, the Warriors have always been good with a good forward pack. And so you start to lose them. Who do you bring in at this point? Because there's a lot of movement already undertaken in terms of good NRL players. The Bulldogs have picked up a few good players. There's been transfers left, right and centre. I mean, what you can read from this is, unless the Warriors come out with a massive offer, he's gone, Burger.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable! Incredible!
The Platform.